So I'm back from my little break. I was in a very dry, desert-ish environment, and upon coming back, I was like, you know what, I really want to spend a lot of time in a painted world. The exact opposite of that. This is my dark build. I've had this character for quite a long time. I've just never made a video about it until now. This build is quite a lot of fun. I use the dark infused Corvian Great Scythe, which is really, like, for me at least, like an underrated weapon. I never hear anyone really talk about it. I never hear anyone say like, "Oh, it's so great." In fact, two of my favorite Dark Souls YouTubers, I think it's like Saint Riot and Scared the Tryhard, both say this weapon is incredibly mediocre, and I can get that. I can get what they're saying about how it's not as good as straight swords or like the Murakuma or something like that for invasions. But this weapon does have a ton to offer, and I'm going to highlight some of that. So I was thinking to myself, like when I was making this dark character, I'm like, oh, I'm going to use the Onyx Blade, and like that's going to be the whole build. I'm going to have a dark character that uses the Onyx Blade, and they're going to be like this Knight of Londor in the Painted World, etc., etc. However, I already have a character that two-hands greatsword, and that is Judicator Yuri. So for this character, I want to do something a little different. Now, which is a little unfortunate because like, I think the Onyx Blade is the best greatsword in the game. It has the longest range. It has all the pokes. It has a buff. It does like just absolutely insane damage, and it's like dark damage too. So, but really, all this is kind of beside the point. I'm using the Corvian Great Scythe for a number of reasons. For one, for lore purposes, it's a little bit how in the same way that Frida gave up the Onyx Blade for her scythes, I gave up the Onyx Blade for a far less meta weapon. But even despite its non-meta attributes, Corvian Great Scythe is a phenomenal weapon for a number of reasons. First things first, the range. The range is just huge. It's always totally underestimated. Like, no one quite realizes that this weapon's going to hit them from that far away. That's one thing I love about it. It's got a nice horizontal slash. However, it does struggle with people who want to roll into you. So that's like kind of a downside, but as long as you give yourself enough space, you can always outrange them. This also makes it really easy to deal with, the greatly feared Greatsword Blender or Ultra Greatsword Blender. Just like several users, so several players using Ultra Greatswords is a nasty blender to be in. This lets you stay outside of that for the most part. You can hit them with damage that is better than what you'd get with a straight sword from ways away, and not have to like get in the middle of things like you do with a lot of these other weapons. This weapon also does really, really well against shields. I love it when I like invade someone and they put up their shield, because like that puts me at such a huge advantage. So the scythe gets chip damage on shields. Just uninfused is already going to do chip damage. Now with the dark infusion, a lot of shields don't have dark defense, so you're going to get the chip damage from that, plus the physical chip damage. There's like two parts of your damage when you infuse something. There's the physical side, there's the elemental side. You're already getting chip damage from both, and then you're also getting the dark chip damage by itself. So that's awesome. You end up popping a lot of shields open. So far this weapon can outrange straight swords. It neutralizes shields. It can outrange great swords and ultra great swords. A lot of benefits. It does struggle with people rolling into you, like I mentioned earlier. And it does struggle a little bit with hitting multiple people at once. It doesn't have that wide arc that Ultra and that basically just swords, great swords, straight swords, all have in common. That wide arc doesn't quite have that, but it has really nice range, and is still very effective against multiple opponents at once. Another thing this weapon really has going for it is its R1, R2 combo. The way I play a lot of the time is I kind of dare people to heal in front of me, and then I punish them for it. Because I find that panics hosts and phantoms a lot when they're just burning through their Estus, because I look like I've given them a space to heal, but then I'm right upon them doing more damage. So this allows you to heal punish extremely effectively. R2 combos from R1, and it's not super quick. You have to, you have to be a little bit close to them to do it. But it works really well. It does, I think, 500 to 600 damage depending on their absorption if you hit that R1, R2 combo. This weapon also really is able to complement my style of play because it has this tiny bleed auxiliary to it. It's not, you know, it's not like having a bleed infused weapon, but it builds up over time. And for me, I'm just trying to space out the fight. I'm trying to panic my opponent into doing something stupid, into getting them to play dumb. And the bleed auxiliary is great because you just slowly build up that bar. Every time you're heal punishing them, you are just building up that bar until at some point it's gonna proc, and that might kill them or get them down to super low, and then they're gonna really start panicking. In a sort of reference to, I guess, the Life Hunt Scythe from Dark Souls 1, this also builds up bleed on you for every time you build a bleed on them, except your bleed is greatly diminished. I think it might be like half as much to a quarter as much bleed that builds up on you for every time you build bleed on your opponent. So it ends up being pretty much negligible. There's never been an instance where I'm like, okay, I gotta stop using this because I'm about to bleed out. Also because no one runs bleed builds in 2019. But even in, again, this video, you'll see that I faced a guy who was running a bleed build. Actually, I fought him twice. And each time, if he bled me out, it was because just like what his weapons were doing, not because of the bleed that was building up on myself from my own weapon. So outside of the Corvian Great Scythe, I also like to use the Murky Hand Scythe, Dark Infused, of course, as a sort of chase down. The quick step on it is really handy. Just a dagger. Daggers are chase down weapons if you two-hand them. The other thing you'll see me using a lot in this video is an offhand, Pyromancer's Parting Flame. Not because I'm actually using Pyromancies, but just I've noticed that coming into a world where a lot of enemies have already been killed, you'll get that one free Estus from the Parting Flame weapon art. Even if you've killed none of the enemies and the host has killed the enemies, like you still get that weapon art, which is really handy, especially for large parties. That works really well in the mixed world because there's a lot of smaller fodder enemies, like all the wolves on the snow field and all the rotting Corvians in the Corvian settlement, and there's just a ton of like Pharaoh followers on the mountain pass. So there's all these like smaller enemies that all together don't do a ton of damage. Well, the wolves and the followers are good enemies in packs. The Corvians just don't really do anything except scream and maybe sometimes shove you off the cliff. But due to like the large quantities of lower health enemies, you get a lot of cover, so you can retreat back into them, and you also get the benefit of Pyromancer Flame, the Parting Flame is like weapon art, when the host or party has killed a bunch of these enemies. This is kind of related to what I want to also talk about with this video, not just like what weaponry and what tech I'm using, but a lot to do with like why I'm invading most of the painted world for this character. Actually, I don't think I have any other clips where I'm invading elsewhere. I think I try to keep this character just in the painted world. Basically, what I want to spend some time doing is praising the Ashes of Ariandel DLC. I know a lot of people don't like it that much. A lot of people are like, oh, well, the Ring City was so much better, and it only had one real boss fight, etc., etc., which is all fair criticisms. And from a PvE perspective, they're totally right. Like PvE alone, but with the PvP aspect of it, I've really appreciated how well designed these levels are. Even stuff like depths of the painting. Did you know that you can walk from Ariandel Chapel all the way down, like make all the jumps down on the routes down to the depths of the painting, and then find another route with those same routes all the way back up? I only learned that because I had an invasion where the host hid somewhere in the Ariandel Chapel where I could never find them, and blues kept spawning in the depths of the painting, and they kept running down there, so I kept chasing blues down there, killing them, coming back up, and having to chase the next one down there. I ended up on that day getting like 6 or 7 forked blue tongues, and then the host ran into the into Freed's boss fight room. It was pretty awesome. But there's lots of like smaller things like that. The way these levels like loop back on themselves, all the different shortcuts from a invader's perspective is great. The Corvian settlement has all this height to it that you can use for plunging attacks. It has all these smaller, like more subtle escapes. Even stuff like the snowfield, which seems pretty linear upon my first like couple playthroughs of this game. I've realized that you can constantly like get back to other areas. There's always loops to get back to the starting bonfire, to get back to every bonfire. And that's something that not every level in this game has, and I think that's something that makes this whole DLC as one big area really special. Another thing is with all these like smaller enemies like I talked about earlier, it creates all these instances as for an invader to make these ambushes. You saw it earlier where I like ambushed that one party that was going up the mountainside to with all the dogs. You know, the giant wolf jumps down. There's all these different little areas where you can make a stand. You can run in and cause like chaos with these smaller enemies that maybe your opponent doesn't take as seriously as they take you. So that's a really great aspect of this whole level. And lastly, I think the lore of the Painted World is, in my opinion, just this is purely me, a little cooler than a lot of the stuff in Dark Souls in general, in Dark Souls 3 in general. This kind of sets the stage for if they ever decide to continue the series, where it will go. This also gives the series an out for how it can properly end without just being like, and the world ended, there's no hope, everyone died. The Painted World gives hope of other Painted Worlds. It gives hope of a future for these characters and like the IP of Dark Souls. So that's kind of why I wanted to place this character here. Myrine, that's my character's name, is like this guardian of this link to other worlds. She's like a guardian of just like the Painted World and all of its little secrets. That's why she has the scythe, and that's why she's kind of wearing that same garb that Wilhelm does, because she's not quite a member of Londor, but she still has ties to it. That's just like my own little headcanon about my, or like role playing about my own little character. So this character is a lot of fun. Actually, like one of my favorites, and I consistently enjoy playing with this character. Subsequently, because this is like slightly older footage by like about a month, I've added like a couple more points here and there to get this character up to level 91. And that's because I wanted to get more invasions, even if it meant invading, you know, solo level 120 people. I didn't really mind because I feel like the levels in this area give you a lot to work with. So you always have a chance. It's not like you're ever just totally fucked if you're not at 120. You're at a disadvantage, but hey, like an invader is always at a disadvantage in Dark Souls 3. Well, that's about all from me for now. I'm going to make a couple more videos with Myrine pretty quickly, and then I'm going to finish off Yuri's quest for 700 Pale Tongues. So I'm looking forward to that. I just wanted to showcase this really long, really cool duel with this guy here, and that's about it for me. Thanks for watching.